Welcome to My Dad's Car. Enjoy!
Welcome to My Dad's Car, a podcast discussing our personal relationship with automotive nostalgia. And you know what? It doesn't even have to be about your dad's car. It can be your mum's, your grand's, your parents', guardians, or even a neighbour's. If it made an impression, let's talk about it. Hi everyone, Andy here. If you're up to date with the bonus episodes, or you've been following us on social media, you'll be aware that we were guests on the Ignition podcast with Harry the other week. Well, the episode's done, and he shared it on his channel and kindly sent over the audio for us to share with you guys too. So, without further ado, enjoy the episode.
What is it that we all love about cars? Is it the look, the sound, the drive? Well, the history of cars and stories of those cars are what draw me in. And in this week's podcast, we have a crossover with My Dad's Car. Andy and Jon are on to talk about their exciting past with cars and why they started the podcast in the first place. And a special Car of the Year shootout discussing what cars dominated the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s and the 2000s. But let us know if you think we picked the wrong car for each year. I'd love to know what your thoughts were. And now, to the episode. You like cars, right? That's why you listen to this podcast. Well, I've got exciting news. The Ignition podcast is going in person. I am creating a space for all of us to meet. I'm inviting guests, audience members, and business owners that I've had on the podcast. Now, if you want to meet some of the guests we've had, well, this is your chance. I want you to email me at harry@ignitionpod.com to come to the event. It will be on Friday the 6th of October from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. There'll be music, food, laughter, and most importantly, a quick explanation of what I plan for the future. So if you want to come and you're interested in knowing more, please shoot me an email. I look forward to seeing you guys in person. Jon, Andy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
There is a little question I like to start off with, and it is, well, on topic, but what ignited your passion for cars?
I'll jump in first. For me, I think it's probably my dad, essentially. I wouldn't say he was a petrol head, but he definitely had a liking for sort of nicer cars and stuff. So then over time, obviously, being driven around in his car, you kind of get the flavour for it, and then that gets passed down to older brothers. And then I think once they start getting stuff that you like, then you really get into it.
Yeah, well, it's nice to have that, isn't it? Because I'm the oldest of three, so I was the one that had the obsession. Right. My dad's not really into cars, and so he's into cars, but he'd say, "Oh, I had that when I was growing up," or I had this. And he was like, he always wanted a 911. He always wanted a Defender. He still does. So he's getting there. But yeah, Andy, what was your part that went? I quite like these things.
Again, my dad's fault really. My dad was a coach trimmer, so he did car upholstery. So although I didn't grow up living with him, I used to go up and see him every few weeks, and that would be kind of the first thing we'd do. We'd turn up at his place. He lived in a flat above a big workshop. So yeah, straight through his kind of small shop, out the back, see what cars there were, go and have a play around with them. And then at the weekends we'd kind of take the cars out to shows or whatever. So yeah, all his fault.
Always full. What was those shows like for you? What do you remember the most, sort of seeing and all liking about that?
So yeah, we were going to classic car shows at the time. He had a friend who lived in America who used to import British cars and bikes over, and he'd store some of them at my dad's place. So kind of in return for storage, Dad got to use them. So yeah, we'd go out to kind of events and kind of show them, or sometimes kind of once a year or whatever, he'd get a motorbike or a car for free as a bit of a payment. So whatever was being sold, we'd potter around in. So might be a Healy, it might be an Alpha Spider, Datsun Fairlady. So, those were the sort of things we were going to. But we went to Brands Hatch quite a lot as well. Yeah. So,
I do enjoy Brands Hatch.
And Lyddon as well. My dad was in Kent, so, yeah.
And this is, again, the topic I like to talk about on the podcast, because it tries to show people, what your upbringing was like. And for you guys at school, I know for me that school was, I had one mate who was into cars. That was it. So I didn't like football. Didn't really like rugby. And I had cars. I really had one friend that I could speak to and actually got along with. So what was it like for you then growing up at school? What were your memories of that? And talking about cars and stuff?
Yeah, well, I was in a friendship group, I think, who were all into cars. We had kind of Micro Machines was sort of big when I was little. Lego cars. every kind of exercise book I had from school has got a picture of cars drawn on it. That was kind of...
As you do.
That was how it was. I was flicking through... If we went to a supermarket and like my mum said you can have a magazine, I was buying Volkswagen or kind of custom car magazine or car and car conversions, and that's basically just what I wanted to read. So yeah, I was I was into football to be fair, kind of at school, but yeah, cars were better.
Cars were better. And John, what was that like for you?
Well, football dominated my childhood, and I think most of my mates were really sort of footy addicts. So there wasn't really any petrol heads, so to speak, I don't think, in my school that I can remember. I do remember having a lot of those Matchbox type vehicles though. And you used to get the F1, is it the Borrego?
Something like that. That's a Mexican dish.
So I had a load of those, which was good. But yeah, I think the football just overshadowed the cars, which is not great news for this podcast, is it?
If I could talk to you about football, I would. No, because it's one of those things where I used to play, like, playing with cars as a kid would be, again, not Matchbox, but wherever I was bought, Hot Wheels or these little die casts. I had remember having a map of, I don't know what road it was one of those, like, play carpets. And used to park the cars in different houses, and I drove on one. Yeah. You'd go to the fake little car meets, or you'd have those things, and it's brilliant. You get lost in your imagination as a kid. I just think it's something that as an adult, I kind of want to get back into, because you lose it somewhere along the line. I don't know what it is, but yeah. I
think my sort of school memories of cars would be my dad just dropping me there. So we had quite a large Mercedes, and people would often sort of see it and think, "Oh Christ, you must be doing all right, aren't you?" But I mean, we weren't sort of rolling in it, but back then, as I've said on our podcast, those cars did stand out. Mercedes weren't sort of as common as they are now. So that was a nice feeling, sort of rocking around in that.
I remember, I don't know what it must have been. It must have been probably 97, something like that, when the PlayStation came out. And we went to the video shop up the road and we hired a PlayStation for the weekend, and it had Gran Turismo. And that was like, yes.
Gold mine.
And, I've lost kind of countless hours, days, years, etc. I stopped buying PlayStations at PS2 because I meant
same. Yeah.
It was like, if I buy another PlayStation, my life's basically a write-off. So, that's kind of where my Gran Turismo memories finish. But yeah, that's kind of a strong memory, kind of spending the weekend playing Gran Turismo with my brother.
Yeah, I can relate to that, certainly. Yeah.
And so, guys, when it comes to leaving school then, I mean, I know that when I left school, there wasn't a lot of options for me. There was a guy in the year above who had a degree apprenticeship in JLR. That was great. I was like, cool, I'll do that. So I started applying for that. I was doing my A-levels. Halfway through doing my A-levels, the program was shut. I was like, great, okay, what do I do now? Went to the school, they were like, you have to find an apprenticeship. They couldn't help me with anything. I told them what I liked. I like cars. And as far as I was concerned, just wanted to work in cars. And so, left school. I was looking around, there's this thing called Tuner School, or Tuner in America, which is something run by Hennessy. And they had a 14-week course of 14 grand. And I was like, cool, I'll get a job, full-time job, I'll start saving up. So I did that, started saving up, got to about 4 or 5 grand then lockdown hit. And then you're at that point, you're like, what do I do with this money I've just got? I've saved up to do this thing in America. I don't know when I'll be able to go over there. So I bought a Mini. And that cemented for me, modifying cars, working with cars. It taught me so much about what was going on. I mean, I don't have it now, but it blew up. But for you guys, what were the options for you leaving school? What did you want to work for? What did you want to do for a living? Was it cars or was it something else?
I think I would have liked to have gone into cars 100%, but back then, when you got your careers advice, that's 15, 16, it was all very much, well, certainly from our era, we're a bit older than you.
It was rubbish, wasn't it?
Well, it was all sort of, you must go and work in an office and you must just wear slacks and a shirt for the rest of your life. And there was no real sort of push towards trades, I would say. Because I would love to learn how to be a mechanic. I mean, obviously I still could, but it becomes harder as you get older to go back into a trade, I think, because obviously you'd have to give up a lot of time and hours, training. So I think if I could do it second time around, I'd certainly look to get involved, even if it was body shop work or anything that's kind of where you're around vehicles more. But yeah, back in the day, it just wasn't a thing. It certainly wasn't for me anyway.
No, I think, if you said you were into cars, that you could either be probably a car salesman or a mechanic, or maybe spray cars. That was kind of it, wasn't it? And obviously, with what I do, kind of the marketing side of it and working for a parts supplier, you see a lot more kind of avenues where there's a career which is hooked and hinged on vehicles or automotive, but actually isn't maybe getting your hands dirty under the bonnet.
Yeah.
But
I think it was just, I wouldn't go as far as to say it's looked down on, like going into being a mechanic as being a bit of a, not a dead end thing, but
I would say it's looked down on by schools anyway.
But people would say, oh, you know, there are better things you could sort of aspire to do.
The push was IT, wasn't it? When we left school, kind of late 90s, it was kind of business studies, like computers, internet.
Clip art.
Everyone's got to be able to make a bendy word on or whatever.
It might be different at the schools that I went to now because they've got Rolls-Royce factories on their doorstep, so there's probably a lot of opportunity for, you know, various sort of niche jobs within there.
Yeah, that's a great point. They're looking at what's around you as well, like not just because I mean, even if I was 15, I looked at doing stuff, and the closest place is Caterham, and like Surrey and McLaren, that's still an hour and a half away for me. There's no real car places in Kent. There's the old, you know, guy with a garage, or there's a restoration, which is great. So I did work experience in a Datsun restoration company, which is fantastic. I love that. And it just, you know, but then again, like say I went to school and I told them about the work experience, and they were like, you could do more than being a mechanic. But I think it's just schools have a way of going, get into university. That's what they push for. I mean, especially mine did. It's like, you need to get a degree. I was like, well, I don't want to go to university. Yeah. Which kind of narrowed your options. But what are you guys doing now, and how are you enjoying it? And are you finding that what you do now is kind of scratching that itch? It's okay to talk, right? Well, Takona is a brand that's changing mental health awareness. I have always been one that's found it hard to talk, and that my feelings, well, they weren't exactly best spoken. Once I found Takona and learned more about what Lewis does, I was amazed that a clothing brand is making people aware just with one simple logo. If you see a Takona t-shirt, a shirt, a cap, a hat, a sticker, whatever it is, you know that person knows it's okay to talk. And because they want to help spread the message, Takona is giving us 10% off. So if you listen to this podcast, in the show notes below will be a link to the website, and if you use code Ignition10, you get 10% off store-wide products. So enjoy the rest of the episode.
So I work in marketing now for a car parts supplier. It has sort of graduated. I went from wanting to be a car designer, signing up for kind of like a mechanics course, which then became sort of a far more technical, theoretical HND. So I got an HND in automotive engineering, but I came out kind of not really believing in that qualification to the point where, I kind of understood how engines all went together and how to design them, but I couldn't actually perhaps put one together, which I kind of felt should be something I had. And, worked through kind of Halfords, went into sales, went into marketing. So that's kind of where I'm at. But that writing about vehicles, meeting people, chatting to people about vehicles is that's sort of where I get a hit. And then obviously we started the podcast. I run a Porsche club. Yeah, I've got a number of plates spinning to get that buzz. So.
What are you, John? What are you doing?
I'm a gardener. Basically I've started my own gardening business earlier this year. Basically because I got fed up with working for other people, but I think you get to a point in your life where you think, if I don't try something off my own back now, then time's ticking. And it gives me a lot of freedom in terms of, you know, being able to do school runs, that sort of thing, and I can clock on and off whenever I want, and also can do the podcast with Andy. Timing wise, that was actually great when Andy came up with the idea. It didn't take a lot of thinking to sort of just jump in and go for it. Yeah,
I know that feeling because I was 21 when I said I don't want to work with people anymore. But no, it's last straight after lockdown. I was thinking about life and going, what's out there for me? No, I can't just work in hospitality for my whole life. I could go become a trader, you know, as you said, like become a mechanic, but, you know, like you say, I was taught at school that, you know, life's more than that. And so I'm like, cool, I'll start a business. You know, this podcast hopefully will turn into that. And that's one of the things. But you guys mentioned your podcast, and that's kind of what we're here today to talk about. The two, and then we'll get into some sort of, you know, we'll play a game in a minute, but keep it more a bit fun for the listeners and the viewers. But so for you guys, what is the podcast? What are you trying to do? And just tell me a bit about it.
So the podcast is called My Dad's Car. We're very kind of clear. It's not just about dad's cars. So it can be mums, it can be grands, neighbours, whatever, teachers. It's basically sort of celebrating our sort of motoring memories, kind of for everyday motoring memories. It doesn't have to be your dad had a Rolls Royce or a Ferrari. it can be kind of the fact that, you just used to go to school every day in a Ford Escort, but it used to break down, or, your mum smoked like a chimney, or whatever it might be. And, it's just all those little the little stories, and just sort of unearthing those memories that people potentially just put to the back of their mind. But obviously then they come back out again, and we have a chat about them. Sometimes, we have a bit of a laugh. Sometimes you can spin that and kind of take some reflection and go, oh, actually, how's that affect how I now do stuff? So one of the thoughts that I've had in kind of talking to people about their motoring memories is the fact that I've got two girls. I've got one who's 5, one who's 8. And at some point, and maybe it's even been like their earliest memory has been, and I've potentially had an influence on that. Like in 20 years' time, someone go, what's your earliest memory of your dad?
Yeah.
And it might be me kind of taking them out in the car, or it could be me coming home from work in absolute rage. I don't really do that, but like, and just shouting. So I'm a bit more conscious as a parent to kind of try and make them have a better time because of doing this as well. So, it's been good fun. And we met, some really interesting people and some really cool, just everyday stories, but just stuff that.
I think one of the best things about it is the fact you don't have to be a full-on petrol head to come on and speak. You can what you're talking about isn't necessarily tuned right into cars. It can be anything. Like we had someone, like we do smells, don't we?
Yeah.
Are often a sort of strong thing in people's memories. Somebody's dad used to always carry a banana in their glove box, didn't they?
Yeah.
So bananas for them, when they smell it, reminds them of their dad's car. So just funny little things like that, I think, is what make it really kind of interesting for us.
Yeah, because you can talk about the stats, the facts, the figures of a car for only so long before you run out of stuff to say about. Because the wheelbase, or had this engine, and then they changed the chassis from this to that. Yeah, you could go for a while, but no one's really that interested. I mean, it's the stories behind the cars and what they see the little nuances, like the stuff you now think about your kids, or that banana probably stunk, but it's.
It was a new one every day. It wasn't the same banana for 20 years or something.
If it gets a couple of days and it's like, what's that smell? And then it comes out. Well, it was a good question for you guys, and I have, what were your earliest memories of cars?
It's a good question. I don't know exactly what the earliest memory is. Is my car? Yeah, my earliest car memory is. I don't know. I've got so many of them. I don't know. Where if you look through kind of photo albums and stuff, you start populating your own memory.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've got a lot of kind of car stuff in photo albums. But I don't know what the earliest one is. I know I shut my fingers in the boot of an E-Type, and that really hurt as a kid. I was probably 8 or so. That car was a left-hand drive as well. So I remember being in that while my dad was driving on country lanes, kind of thinking, oh, look, I'm driving because I'm on the right side, not the left side. So there's kind of, there's some memories there. Earliest. I remember also, we used to live, I was born in Kent and we moved down south, and I remember kind of travelling on the motorway, sort of M26, probably there's a bridge there. And whenever we kind of went past that would be a case of kind of we're getting either closer to my dad's or closer to my nan's if we were visiting my nan. So I remember that, but I don't know what vehicle that was in. So considering I host a chat called My Dad's Podcast, or My Dad's Car, that was a really pants answer. Such a hypocrite.
Put that in our terms and conditions.
We are hypocrites.
Don't practice what preach.
It's true though. I think you're right about, you do see pictures of back in the day, and then you do sort of, that generates as to being your actual real memories, and really they're not. Because I'm struggling to think as well of my earliest memory. I guess it probably is like
your
school
favourite memory.
Favourite memories, I think earliest would be Dad used to take us to this like local car gala, which at the time seemed huge, which I'm sure it was just like 100 cars in the field sort of thing. So that was really cool. There'd be, I guess that would have been late 80s, early 90s. Yeah. There'd be a range of sort of, I don't know, cars from the 50s to 80s, I guess. And that was probably my first sort of dipping the toe in the water of getting the flavour for it as well, I think. And seeing that my dad was into it as well made it even more sort of enjoyable. Yeah.
Well, I know that we've covered pretty much, I think, as much as we can about introducing each other. But there is this game that I'll quite like to play. And it is pretty much, it's almost like Top Trumps. I guess we'll play, pick a card from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. You don't have to do all of them, but we can pick and choose depending on what you can come up with. And then we'll just sort of hash it out, why that car, why you think it's the best of the era. Then people that are listening at home can, I like that one, I don't like that one. Or actually, I would have picked this. I mean,
refer to my notes at this
I was going to say at this point, I'm going to just look at my phone and we'll just... Cool, so we'll start off with the 60s now. I'm going to let you guys go first. What have you got?
So I've done two lists. So Money No Object, I'm going to buy an E-Type because my dad had an E-Type when I was growing up. So we were talking about the guy who used to import cars and bikes and stuff. He bought 3 E-Types over back in probably the late 80s, early 90s. Yeah. Sold 2 of them and gave one to my dad as a bit of a payment. It was a complete basket case, like Flintstone floor and stuff. And he got offered a bunch of money for it, went as it was, turned it down, restored it. It was primrose yellow. I've got a picture of it here. And, then the classic car market crashed and basically sold it for what he could have bought. Sold it for at the point when he had it. But yeah, loads of really good memories from that. So yeah, as a kid growing up, I kind of toy E-Types, all in boxes. I didn't play with them, but yeah, that was kind of, that's the one for me. If I'm being slightly more sensible, I've got unfinished business with a Mini and I quite like Beetles. So, it's slightly more realistic.
I've done the same list as Andy, so Money No Object and a sort of realistic one. I've gone for an Aston DB5.
Lovely.
60s. Because I just think the E-Type, not just because Andy chose it, but I always think it's just a bit of they're beautiful things, but I don't
better
know.
not drive through Italy, because we'll get caught by the mafia.
That's true.
If you picked a mirror, we're stuffed.
So I thought I'd go a little bit. I mean, it's not really a swerve away from the obvious, is it? A DB5. They're probably the 2 most iconic 60s cars. Would you say? Probably are, aren't they?
Yeah, I guess so. Sports cars wise, maybe. I don't know. 250 GTO Ferrari.
But I think because it's got a roof as well.
Practical.
Yeah.
Helps rolling down hills. Yeah.
Exactly. And for the slightly more realistic, I've gone for a Beetle. VW Beetle. I've always quite fancied one. Brother had one years ago, which was mainly sort of primer in colour. But I think that's one of those cars that obviously it's slow but it's just like the smells and the noise and you're right in there, aren't you? Rear engine. So
you ever get the chance of going to fast Beetle? That is hilarious. Been a few which have kind of got hot engines in. Yeah, and they're just.
Sounds quite terrifying.
It's going to be scary, isn't it? Absolutely holding on to a tin at that point. No, I've got, speaking of Beetles, I've gone for a 911.
Okay.
So the original sort of, I don't know, it's obviously the quintessential sports car. I just think, as the car of the 60s, and it wasn't the best, if you don't get me wrong, it's not the best 911. Not even the best, probably not the best sports car of the 60s, but for me it was either that or a 356, because I've just got an affinity with Porsches that I quite can't shake, and I won't. I blame my dad. But I've not picked 2, but if I had to pick a second one, it'd be Mini. So I'm with you on that one. Cool. John Cooper S, sort of 1965.
It's a decent little garage we've got there, isn't it?
Yeah.
A few quid's worth.
There we go. Right, so the 70s. What are we thinking?
911, 2.7 RS. We're going to get on well.
There you go. I'll get my coat, shall I? I've gone for a BMW M1.
Oh,
that's a wild card.
Interesting.
Yeah, because I thought I sort of punched it into Google 70s supercars, and I think that's the first M car. I know that's the first M car, and I'm quite into M cars, the older ones anyway. I sort of lose track post 2010 or something, and I think when it came out, it was extremely expensive, which made it hard for them to sell because obviously they were going up against,
the fuel crisis as well,
and Ferraris, all that sort of stuff. So I think that would be Lord knows what they go for now. Probably $1 million or something, but that would be my choice.
Nice.
I think I had a Scalextrics M1 as well. I don't know what divisions they used to race in. Would it have been Le Mans? No.
Yeah, they did them in for that, I think, yeah. I've seen some of
black
them on
with gold. bits on it. Yeah,
Right, fake John Player special.
Yeah, counterfeit John Player.
So you've got two there for the 70s.
Yeah, 70. I've gone from Mercedes SL, which is not affordable at all. Actually, thinking about it, but I just think that's just a beautiful thing. Yeah.
I've gone for Porsche 914. So I've got a little bit of a soft spot for those as well. Going back to my dad, so I remember him having a few of those in as a kid, like for leather retrims, dashes, etc., and sitting in one of those kind of as a 10-year-old, 12-year-old, or whatever. It's a bit like sitting in a Mini because they're child size.
Yeah.
So some nice memories there. So potentially one day.
And I think speaking of BMW, the 3-litre CSL I've gone for. So
Nice.
Batman.
Nice.
I think that's of the 70s. That was my pick. I'll think of a second one now on the top of my head, but it's probably G-Wagon. Again, this is the first sort of first of its. I could have gone Defender, but I think what Mercedes were doing at the time and what it is now versus what the Land Rover is now, you see the two different progressions of it. It's like Brabus isn't really doing a Defender, but they are doing a G-Wagon. So I think the 70s G-Wagon.
G-Wagon styling's not really changed at all, is it? Not really.
Well, of course. The Defender's matching.
Designers on holiday. I wish stretch.
I do wish the BMW
secretly done by Porsche, isn't it?
So it's better than Porsche designing cars and people stealing their engines, but there we go. One day I have to flip in, but there we go. So the 80s, that's an interesting era.
Ferrari F40. So that was kind of the poster car for me. So models of them there, still in boxes, never been played with.
Feel free to show the camera.
Then we can. There we go. Over here. Dusty box, slightly squashed because it's been in my loft, but the F40 was the poster car, and I'm into Porsches now, but I wouldn't turn one of those down.
Neither would I.
Something special about an F40.
There is.
I went for a Porsche 959, which I think was sort of side by side with the Testarossa, wasn't it? In the sort of certainly the computer game era, I think.
I think it's what it went up against, wasn't it? In the old Gran Turismo, especially it was like the sort of like 959.
Probably before that,
Chase
Outrun or Chase HQ.
Outrun,
I remember that.
Yeah, that would be my. I think as well when that came out, like the stats on it were quite insane.
I don't know the numbers, but I think they were heading for 200 miles an hour.
That was the race to 200.
That's when things were going sort of through the roof. Yeah, that would be my non-sensible option.
I didn't mention my not sensible Golf GTI.
Golf GTI.
Mark 1 and Mark 2 GTI.
Nice. Yeah. This is again not a sensible option, but I've gone for a Mercedes S-Class 560.
There's a hidden Mercedes coming through, isn't there?
It's probably, that's probably 15, 20 grand for a really nice one, I suppose. But that kind of leans into the cars my dad had. He had a lower spec one, but I think I'd go for one of those. Just poodle around.
Don't want to take it far across your phone.
I think it's not, I guess it's not its own car in its own right, but I was going for the 80s 18 van, GMC. Nice.
Okay, yeah.
Just because I have a massive, that film, not the original one, sadly, because I'm a bit young for that one, but Mr. T, and that film, that car, I still have a little diecast model upstairs, and it is my favourite van in the entire world. And I thought if you put what they did with the super van, and the 4 did, and put that in the GMC, I think, one hell of a car there. And it's on my dream build list of things to build is a super van GMC.
I think we saw one in the car park, didn't we?
18
cash.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah, or even in the show, maybe. There was an 18.
Yeah,
possibly.
I'm sure we did see one.
And then if I had to pick a second one, going off Ferrari, I couldn't touch. Again, because I watch Wolf of Wall Street, it's possibly one of my favourite films. Right. Again, a lot of my cars are picked from films because my dad was really into films. Maybe that's why, because the films we watched were like The Italian Job growing up.
Yeah.
You mentioned the mirror rolling down a hill. It's one of those things. And Minis is where Minis came from. Is that film? So film to me, probably why. But that 80s van and that Mini. Yeah. So the 90s.
Put McLaren F1. I'm pretty sure that was 90s.
Yeah,
you take them well there. That's a great choice.
It was 93, was it?
It had Corrado wing mirrors. That was that was 90s. So from a more sensible point of view, it's still probably going to cost me 30 grand. But 968 Club Sport. So I got given a 968 brochure when I was a kid. So I've kind of nursed that. I've got a 944 currently, so I'm there. I'm halfway there. But
Do some bodywork to him, and that.
Yeah, people have done it, but yeah, I'll wait, and I'm not in a rush.
All the time in the world.
Yeah.
My 90s car, I've gone for a Lancia Delta Integrale Evo 2.
Evo 2, yeah.
Which I think it's about 100 grand now, aren't they, for a good one?
Yeah, probably a bit more, but yeah, I'd definitely say that.
I think I just love to drive one of those. Yeah, small, easy to park.
Hatchback, you do shopping in it.
Exactly, yeah.
Great choice.
And then sensible option BMW M5, which is probably about 15 grand, I guess, today. I had like 520 BMW 34s of the same era, so it's kind of always my dream to have the M version of that car.
That's nice. Yeah. Well, my pick was the McLaren F1. So we were in the same sort of wavelength. And that's just because I know Mr. Bean owned one. I think the engineering of that car is exceptional, and the engine as well. And just the fact that it was fast and everything else for a good way. Was it
bit too fast for Mr. Bean, wasn't it? I think
he crashed it twice, I think.
Yeah. I think I saw something recently about that car. It's changed ownership now, but it's had like quite a story of
people owning it and crashing it.
Being repaired, crashed,
Maybe it's the car, not the driver. He got a dodgy one from the factory. And then a different, I guess, a more attainable one. The 90s. Well, it's not attainable now, but I'm going to go GTR R34 B-Spec 2.
Nice. Gran
Turismo, Fast and Furious, again, films. Yeah. I would have it in blue, not in silver, though, because I think the silver one kind of ruined.
Look at it blue.
Yeah, look at it. Yeah, that colour. Well, then I'm going to wrap the 2000s up with 2000s and 2010, so anything modern or 2000 plus. What have we got?
Yeah, 997 GT3 RS. So 911. I'd take a 996 GT3 RS. And yeah, for more attainable, just Porsche 996. So yeah, Carrera 2 would do the job for probably.
You need to look for Porsche.
Sub 20 grand.
Yeah.
If anyone out there from Porsche who's listening and, or watching, then yeah. Got a little bit of time. Try to squeeze you in.
I've gone fairly obvious on the expensive one, Bugatti Veyron.
Why not?
Yeah, why not the Chiron?
I think if you're going to go big, you might as well just go
big.
That's true, actually. You can get that one, can you? And then affordable Golf R32 Mark 5.
Yeah.
Always like the sound of them. I think there's a bit of a theme in a lot of my picks in that speed's not necessarily number one thing. I just like the noise of cars and
Well, speed's great, but it can kill you. Noise can't.
Yeah.
It can deafen you, but it can't kill you. I think for the 2000s, I was like looking at sort of cars that I loved, again, like playing Forza and stuff. So it was the Ferrari 458 Italia was my pick for that. Purely just because it was, the proper mid-engine V8 Ferraris, and you just, the sound of that thing. Also, I love the looks. It's better than the 488. I think the 488 looks disgusting compared to it. I don't know what they did to that car. And then the 296, I might as well just close my eyes and pretend it didn't happen. But no, if I was going to pick an affordable one, I would go back to having my R53, probably. Maybe a bit modified and stuff, but yeah, I don't think I'd need anything else than that. Do need speed though, and that whine and that supercharger, it just haunts me. I go to sleep. But yeah, no, cool. I think it's a brilliant choice of car. I think it's a nice garage. If anyone does own one of those and wants to let us into you, please do. I'll be there in a heartbeat. But yeah, no, cool. I think in terms of we'll let the people pick who they think is best for what. But I mean, you guys have interest. What do we think for the 60s? What do we think?
What was your pick again?
My pick for the 60s was what did I say?
It's obviously not memorable enough.
No, it's not memorable enough.
No, you've lost.
No, I've lost. What you guys go for?
I think the Aston and the E-Type are kind of pretty much side by side, aren't they? The Aston maybe are more iconic, perhaps, just because it's because of the James Bond reference. And you've got machine guns and an oil slick and an injector seat.
Yeah. I think the Jag though is just such for that to come along out of nowhere, and often you can imagine at the time it was just blowing everyone away. It still does to this day.
Cars,
So you could nudge 150 mile an hour. I think you had to take the bumpers off to do it, but that was kind of the claim to fame at the time.
No brakes.
No brakes.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah.
It probably would be the Jag, I guess, in my opinion. if we're going to go.
See, I was going to go Jag as well.
Mm.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great choice. I think mine was the Mini. But,
yes, yeah.
But then all British little British classics. And the Porsche, but there we go. That's not. But then, there's better 911s than the first one. They did a 912, didn't they? The 4-cylinder.
Yeah.
Ages ago, but who wants that?
There's a lot to be said for them. And because the 4-cylinder's about 100 kilos lighter than the 6.
Yeah.
So although it's down on power, you up on weight.
Mm.
So, there's a company called Cam to look up who've done like a hot tuned one. It's about 300 grand. Okay. But it's all carbon bodied 4-cylinder and, real kind of weapon.
I think, was it Title Porsche did one of those as well?
They've done 6-cylinder, I think. I don't think they've done 9 ones too. Okay. But they're, awesome place. I've been to Tile. Really cool place.
Yeah.
Yeah, very nice.
So we'll stick with the E-Type for the 60s. So the 70s. Was it Ferraris and...
I was 2.7 RS 911.
I went for a BMW M1.
And 3-litre CSL.
Wow.
So... I mean, I'm going to stick with mine in this one, but...
I'd be happy to move over to yours, in fairness. Yeah, it's a nice BMW, so...
And the M1, the M1 and the 3-litre car, that was beginning of M, wasn't it? It was the M.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Especially motorsport itself.
I'd put up with it. I'm not a huge BMW fan. But obviously there's 2 of you watching it and there's only 1 of me, so we'll just leave my poor little 911 outside in the rain.
You can't beat an old Porsche, though, in fairness.
No.
I'm very relaxed about this choice. So
You've got more Porsches to pick, to be fair.
There's a few more, yeah. In this hypothetical garage.
And we took your Jag as well.
Okay, well, 2-1. I'm gonna call it on the BMW, but for the 80s, then my little van. I don't think we'll just.
You've got an 80s van.
We'll ignore that, and then you two
I
go
want an F40.
I think F40's got to be the one. Yeah,
hands down, great pick.
Yeah,
I've got 90s then. Got McLaren F1.
Lancia Delta.
Lancia Delta. And the GTR. Depends how much Gran Turismo you guys played.
Played quite a lot.
Yeah, too much. But it's probably got to be the F1, isn't it, I'd say, for talking top trumps.
Yeah, so weight, it's still an icon, isn't it?
It was a game changer
as well, yeah.
I remember when it came out and Tiff Nadell was driving it, obviously at pace, and it was just like you could visibly see that is a very quick car on the screen, like the way it's just sticking, and that was a special thing when it came out. Great noise as well.
F40 it is.
Cool.
Right. What was next in the 90s? Is it?
Naughty. Oh, we had,
that was
McLaren
F1. Yeah, 40 was the 80s.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I've skipped one.
Yeah, 90s McLaren F1.
90s McLaren F1, and then 2000s.
We haven't done yet, have we? So I had the Veyron.
Yeah, Veyron.
Yeah, 997. Yeah.
And then the 458.
I'll be honest, having been into Ferraris as a kid, I couldn't pick a 458 out in a lineup. So I switched off pretty much after the Millennium with a lot of vehicles. But that's not to say...
Just before the LaFerrari, imagine a LaFerrari kind of squidged slightly.
Where is it off?
On the hard shoulder.
You've got an F.
They're all on the hard shoulder.
Look for the oil.
Yeah.
I think 2000. So you've got after Enzo. So it's
F430 is the last one that I can kind of...
So you got F430 and the 355 was before the 430 was after the 430.
Yeah.
Yes, and the 430 then it's the 458. So you got the
Genesis
afterwards that. I think, yeah.
Because the F430 was a good car, wasn't it?
Well, it was 360 before
by all accounts.
430.
Yeah, I can picture that.
Yeah. And the 430 is very similar to the 360, isn't it? And then you've got the 458 after the 430. So yeah, after the 430 you've got 458.
Ferrari enthusiasts throwing things at the screen at this stage.
I've got it all wrong. Don't redo it. But yeah, my neighbour has. I think he's a 430 challenge that he wheels out to race.
Nice.
Again, we'll talk about things that make you want to love cars. Yeah.
Very nice. Should get him on your podcast.
I should. I've got to just. I've got a problem with meeting people in person. There we go. No, it's all good. Cool. So 2000s then. All Ferrari's out of it. I guess we'll go for the Veyron or the.
I think the Veyron.
Yeah.
Like the McLaren F1 game changer, wasn't it? Like, it's a car of a generation.
If you're going to pick, if we're going to pick the P1, the F1, the P1. Don't hurt me. Can't pick a Veyron.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the next thing to do that? that's going to come along? And is there something in the pipeline? I don't know if there's
Cybertruck.
Well, if Rimac can get it fast enough, then yeah, I think it'll be what they got in there. Then Rimac owns Bugatti, so technically they're just cheating, if you ask me. Buy out the people that are faster than you, and then steal their technology and put your electric motor in it. But there we go. That's again, Matty Rimac. If you want to come on the podcast, please do. Be great to have a conversation with you. But yeah, no, that's cool. That's a eclectic mix. Just to end it quickly, gents. I have 5 questions I ask everyone at the end of the podcast, and so the first one is, what's your ultimate 3-car garage? It's got to be quick, off the top of your head.
Okay, E-Type Mini and 968 Club Sport.
E46 M3 CSL, Merc W126 S-Class of some variety, maybe an R32 Golf, just to keep it real.
I think the E46 was close to making it to my 2000s choice, but
same.
Yeah, but there we go. Yeah, M3, but yeah, that's not a problem. Cool. Next question is: you got one car, drive on any road or track. Where would you go? What would you take? But you can only do it once.
Goodness. Yeah. Wow. I'd like to drive Laguna Seca, going back to Gran Turismo. With the corkscrew and stuff. So maybe we would, 997 GT3 RS, Laguna Seca.
Yeah. Very good.
Probably put up with doing that once and never doing it again.
You can drive the track afterwards, just not on that car.
And someone else's. They could buy the tyres.
Has it got to be a track? Or
a track or road, you can pick a driving road or a track.
The Isle of Man looks appealing. And that M3 CSL would probably do the job.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've only ever had one other person say the RTC. I think it's a great choice because it's a massive loop. You get quite a lot of road. I mean, a lot of people have said Nürburgring or the classic Le Mans track, so you get that nice straight. But yeah, cool.
Isle of Man in a Caterham would be pretty very, wouldn't it? Really?
Potentially a one-way ticket, wouldn't it?
I mean, yeah. I mean, if they do it on 2 wheels, you can do it on 4 wheels.
Yeah, that's true.
Great. The third question is, because this podcast is about your career and your goals and what was possible with automotive motorsport. If you had unlimited time and money, and this wasn't a problem, what would you do for a living?
Oh my word! I'd do the podcast. I think that would be pretty fun.
Would you pay me?
Yeah, I think so. I think traveling around, going to meet people. Some sort of, pucker video setup like this one. Creating content, meeting people.
Oh, great.
Would be, I couldn't do not working. That would just drive me insane.
It's quoted by some people get dementia. It's because they don't work. They're not working the brain. And so therefore you just sit there numbing yourself out all day. Yeah. What would you do, John? Would you do the same thing?
Yeah, that would be great. I wouldn't mind that at all. I don't know, it's not really something I've ever thought about. I guess it'd be good to try and give something back, like help people that maybe are underprivileged or something. Maybe the careers thing would be interesting, like trying to help develop people's choices into careers that might not necessarily be quite so obvious to them. Because that's an issue that I think we both face really from our era. It might be different now, I don't know.
It's not. Well, I don't know, it might have changed in the last 5 years that I've not been to school. But no, that's why I started the podcast, was to, especially for automotive, because there's not a lot of help. You have to know someone, or you have to be in a race team, or your dad has to be rich, or you have to live in Warwick or Oxfordshire if you want a chance of getting. That's why this podcast exists, is to show the opportunities for people, what is out there, and how you can do it by telling people stories.
Either that or a job on Bangers and Cash would be good. I think they've got a great job going to look at barn finds and,
it's brilliant.
And then selling them.
You can follow Johnny Smith around.
Yeah.
Then buy the car.
That's true.
Cool. Then the fourth question is, the advice you'd give to someone that wants to pursue something with a passion, or the younger you, whichever one you pick.
So, I obviously working in marketing and stuff, I had the privilege of going to quite a few different conferences. One of the ones which I watched, and I can't remember who said it, was, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? So basically do that, and then obviously then just apply that to whatever it is and go, well, why should you fail? Right. Yeah. So, just chase it and you'll make it happen eventually.
Great.
Similar to Andy, really. I think you need to try and, if you've got kind of a goal that you've got, I think you need to try and not think about the things that could go wrong. Not to the point where, you shouldn't consider all of the pitfalls, but I think a lot of the time if someone's got an idea or maybe a dream sort of job they want to start doing, you often sort of tell yourself, oh, it's not going to work because of this and this and this. Whereas in reality, I think you just need to do it.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Great. And the last question is, what do you love most about cars?
I think, I guess the people that you meet for it is probably the biggest thing. There's a practicality, which is it can get you from A to B. But, there's so much kind of expression through vehicles for your personality and kind of your interests, but also, just the amount of people you can meet because of that hobby.
Yeah. No, I echo that as well. I think, I could have a guy servicing my boiler in my house and then get into the conversation about cars. We might see what car I've got in my drive, and then before you know it, you're well away with a subject that you didn't realise that it was going to happen at all.
Yeah. Oh, great. Well, guys, thank you for coming down. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure.
It's been great to learn a bit more about your story and why the podcast started. So thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Ignition Podcast with My Dad's Car. Our normal service will resume next week when we drop our next episode. See you soon. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to My Dad's Car Podcast. If you have enjoyed this episode, please click subscribe, leave us a review and follow us on social media. If you'd like to support us further, you can buy us a coffee or sign up to give us a monthly bump start. You'll find details on our website, mydadscar.co.uk. Bye for now.